Hey everybody, Brian McCumber here from Tech Money Talks. This is the year in review, 2019, and I'm so excited about this. This is going to be really awesome. I'm going to share with you my journey with Tech Money Talks and the podcast and everything else that has sparked since then. So going back to the beginning of the year, that's when I first started to focus more on dropshipping. Originally, Tech Money Talks was all about teaching the money-making opportunities that technology can bring, but it was all the money-making opportunities. I talked about technology careers, I talked about online business, many different forms. And then I realized I needed to focus on a particular topic, stop being so broad, and I needed to narrow my focus. And when I did that, that's when shortly after I got this endorsement from Player FM, where they said the Tech Money Talks podcast is the #1 podcast to watch out for in dropshipping in 2019. And then that's when I was like, wow, well, maybe if I just decided to focus on dropshipping 100% of the time, then maybe things will work out. And then following that in March, that's when we had our first professional dropshipper, which was Scott Hilse. He's local to the Midwest, and it was actually his first appearance on the podcast. And he went from being a Uber driver to becoming a multiple six-figure producer in dropshipping, doing a single product dropshipping approach in the store. And now since then, he's pretty much become an internet celebrity and really awesome. And then following that, that's where we had Sam Jacobs. He's actually from New York, young. He was actually still in high school. This kid was still in high school, young adult. So he was still in high school and actually absolutely crushing it. I mean, he has the mindset of a champion, and that's what I remember most about him. And I would say that episode just really was just really awesome. So that was all in the month of March. And as we moved into April, that's when I was dropping some individual podcasts as well. One of the most popular ones that I did personally was called The Psychology of Product Pricing. This is something that nobody's talking about, and it's actually how to price things. I say check it out because I got a lot of feedback on that episode. But then following that, that's where we had our next featured guest, which was Vova Tess, another young entrepreneur. It was actually, I think he was still finishing high school as well, out of Brooklyn. He was out of Brooklyn, and he shared his story. Really awesome dude. And actually, better yet, you can actually hear what he has to say because he shared a clip about his experience on Tech Money Talks and being on the podcast. Or actually,
hey, what's up? Vova Tess coming at you from Tech Money Talks. So I was on Brian's podcast earlier this year. 2019 has been the best year probably of my life so far. So being on this podcast was amazing. He has a great guest on it. If you haven't checked it out, check it out because there's actual value being dropped. And from listening to that podcast alone, you have no excuse not to start your own e-commerce business if you're interested. My name is Vova. I've been dropshipping for about 1.5 years now, successfully. I've been trying for about 2 years. And yeah, I never gave up and it worked for me, and there's no reason why it can't work for you. It worked for me and I was 17 years old. I know other people that I work for and they're 15, 16, 18. It doesn't matter. Age is just a number, and all you have to do is put in the time, work, and effort, and I promise you, the only way you fail is if you give up. And
come back. So wasn't that awesome? Vova, I tell you, he's an absolute killer. He now moved to Florida, and he's just crushing it big time now that he turned 18. And just a really sharp mindset. So this is young entrepreneurs taking action and just leaving no excuses on the table. And actually, it now leads me to the next young entrepreneur that we had, which was Tanner Plains. Now, Tanner Plains was one of the first to actually use influencer marketing back in like 2016 when it first started popping off. And this is where he was having $20,000 days while he was still in high school. And he shares his journey, and it's just really awesome stuff. But this was all happening in the month of April. And then also our next featured guest was Joe Staiber. Joe is actually really connected, and he not only doing his dropshipping business, but helped others get into dropshipping as well. And then also now led to his digital marketing agency that he's doing, and he's just absolutely killing it for sure. Now, in that same month of April, this is where I actually started, I called it the Dropship by Phone program. So what I've been doing along the way in the industry of dropshipping is looking for those gaps. Who's not filling the need? So the Dropship by Phone, just to tell a long story short, is that it's all about how to get dropshipping sales without having to pay for advertising. So I shared a video, it's on YouTube, you can go check it out. It's a video where I share the dropshipping, and you can actually, it was one example that I did where I actually launched a product, and it took me maybe about 5 minutes to post, and it had 14 sales that next morning. And then by that next morning I looked, and it was at least $10 profit. So that was $140 from just 5 minutes of effort. And I shared it in the video and how I did it. But that's when I decided to launch this Dropship by Phone program to help others. That there was a lot of young aspiring entrepreneurs that basically said, what if I don't have money for Facebook ads? What can I do? Well, this is where you can use a Dropship by Phone program where you don't need money to get sales. You can start generating and use those profits to go into your Facebook advertising, and that's what I highly recommend. It's a similar concept like when you see Gary V, that he'll go to do garage sales, and he'll find products and he'll flip them on eBay, that type of retail arbitrage. You know, it's the same thing, that you don't have to pay for advertising, but in that sense, you do have to pay for the product as you're buying it from garage sales, but it's like, you know, cents on the dollar, so it's affordable. So that was a lot. It wrapped up the month of April, but in May, this was really awesome. This is where I interviewed Jessica from Oberlo in Berlin. It was just really awesome. Oberlo, if you don't know, it's one of the most highly used app in Shopify. And Shopify, if you don't know, it's a publicly traded company, and CNBC listed them as the small business platform for e-commerce. And it's just totally mainstream now as far as e-commerce, online business, and it's the most highly used platform for drop shipping. So Oberlo helps you with product fulfillment, and I interviewed Jessica. Jessica is their YouTube personality, and she is just really awesome. She has a great personality, and we just hit it off, and we talked a lot of things. She actually gave a Tech Money Talks exclusive. She went to go work with her data team, and she reached out and she talked to Thomas Lemus, who's the co-founder of Oberlo, and said, what can I get away with? What kind of golden nuggets can I give specifically, exclusively to the Tech Money Talks podcast? And she released it in that episode, and it was in the month of May, and just really awesome. So shout out to Jessica for doing that for sure. Following that, I interviewed Michael Staiber, who calls himself the Wolf of Wi-Fi Money, and he's inspired by the Wolf of Wall Street, and he's been following that. It's just really awesome. The other thing that also happened in 2019, this was in the month of May, this is where I had a rapper that was based out of Atlanta that actually created a Tech Money Talks rap for me, and it's just really awesome. Actually, I'm going to give you a listen right now.
Hey, Tech Money Talks, Tech Money Talks. Live the life just how you want to. Time to be your own boss. Yeah. With your host, B Mac. Break it down so you can understand it. Time to learn from the #1 dropshipping podcast on the planet. Working from your laptop and making six figures. Even millionaire professional dropshippers. B Mac, show them how to do it. Chi-Town representing. Tech Money Talks. Why you waiting? Time to get it. Hey, Tech Money Talks.
Okay, so wasn't that awesome? I tell you, man, he just dropped the beats for sure. I thought it was like really cool stuff. So following that, also did an interview, and this is still in the month of May, did an interview with Harry Coleman, the beast of e-com from United Kingdom. Like I said, we're selling to the world here. We're selling to the world, and Harry Coleman, the beast of e-com from the United Kingdom, is absolutely killing it. One of the biggest e-commerce professionals doing that, and he was actually brought to Berlin, did an interview with Jessica as well. So you can see how this connected network is working together, and that's when things were popping off, and this was still in the month of May. Now, as we move into the month of June, the next person I interviewed was Ryan Matthews. Now, Ryan Matthews is awesome. Like, he was actually still in high school when I interviewed him. He was 17 years old in California, in LA, doing his drop shipping business, he actually focused on high ticket drop shipping sales. So he was one of the few that was actually doing things focused on high ticket drop shipping, and he was absolutely awesome. So he dropped a lot of value and also talked about how he was using Google ads, not just Facebook ads, for his drop shipping business, and he's always thinking outside of the box. So Ryan was just absolutely really awesome, and actually he dropped a video for us sharing his experience on the podcast. Take a listen, go check it out.
Hey, Ryan Matthews here. I just want to make a quick little video recapping 2019, my time with Tech Money Talks, and just my business endeavors over the course of 2019 and going into 2020. So I actually had the privilege to be on Tech Money Talks 2 times this year. One while I was still in high school actually, and just starting to scale my dropshipping business. At that time I was hitting $20-something thousand a month. And then actually again in September, live in Chicago, I was the first returning guest. Me and my partner Hayden were on the podcast together as the first returning guest on the podcast. We talked about a ton of stuff about the evolution of e-commerce, what we think is actually happening in the next couple of years here, and just tons of value. So if you haven't listened to that, definitely go check that out. But 2019 was an amazing year. We got to actually transform over 150 people's lives through our program, Uplevel POD, actually just showing them how to actually run a profitable e-commerce store without selling crap from China, and actually start doing things the right way, right? And actually start selling products people want, which was huge. And in addition to that, we got people out of the death trap of running Facebook ads and not making any money on their Facebook ads. And we've seen people spend $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 on Facebook ads, not seeing a single sale. So we teach people free traffic and how to run US based businesses. So super proud of that. We've had people come in and do insane results. People come in and do $600 a day, $1,000 a day. Insane results. So that was amazing. Going into 2020, I'm super excited to, obviously help out more people and also build some of my businesses to hopefully 7 figures. This year we hit a multi-6, and I'm really, really looking forward to going to 7. I know it's going to happen. It's pretty much inevitable at this point, but yeah, that is a recap of 2019 going into 2020. Hopefully I'll also be on Tech Money Talks again. Would love to, do that again, give another update to all of you guys, all of you listeners. So Ryan Matthews here. Again, big shout out to Brian McCumber and, all the help he had and all the impact he had this year in 2019. Speak soon.
Wasn't that awesome? I tell you, Ryan Matthews absolutely keeping it real. He's crushing it and leading on to bigger and better things, which we're going to talk about a little bit later in the year as we go through this year in review in chronological order. Okay, guys, as we're moving into the month of July, this was absolutely awesome. So now we reached the halfway point, and the next featured guest that I interviewed was Van Dennis. Van absolutely killing it. He's got guns. You see his guns popping out, actually in shape. But his claim to fame is he's been doing a lot with Google advertising, having over a $5 million ad spend in Google ads and absolutely killing it in e-commerce. And he dropped a lot of value in that episode. It was just really awesome. And he actually had something to share with you regarding his experience on the podcast and what he's been up to. So take a listen to this.
What's up, man? Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It was such a blast, man. Such a genuine conversation, talking over digital marketing and also e-commerce, dropshipping, stuff like that. But man, 2019 was a crazy year. It was a good year for learning. A lot happened, a lot of growth happened in that year. Definitely grew my agency from 6 to 7 figures, and I'm looking to keep growing it, to its max capacity, what I can be able to handle. But yeah, man, I'm excited. Looking forward to 2020. I'm glad I met you. I'm glad I met a lot of other gents and a lot of other, women as well within this e-commerce marketing field, and other entrepreneurs, just to be able to talk and share ideas and be able to grow together. But man, I'm excited. I'm glad that I get to talk to you again. I'm pretty sure pretty soon, and I hope you have a good end of the year. And I look forward to talking to you in the beginning of next year, man. Thank you, man, and you have a blessed one. All right, talk to you later.
Wasn't that awesome? I tell you, Van, he's the real deal, absolutely killing it. And then doing new things with that little thing on his chin that you see there, but that's just funny. But he's keeping it real for sure, and he's another dude to watch out for. Van Dennis, just really awesome stuff, brother. But the next featured guest that we had on the podcast, now this was awesome. Danny Rowe. He shared his experience. He was running his dropshipping business out of a mansion in Philadelphia. And I was just amazed. So he shared his story, how he had himself and his friends, who he calls his brothers, operating their e-commerce business outside of a mansion in Philadelphia. And when we talked on the podcast, man, we just hit it off, and he was dropping value. I'm talking about dropping value. This was one podcast that I personally listened to over and over again, getting little nuggets out of that episode for sure. And I remember that he actually shared that he was in the process of getting the second mansion that they wanted to operate their business out of in Denver or in Colorado. And he absolutely, now up to this point, they absolutely did that. So now they have 2 mansions that they're running their business out of, and it's just absolutely awesome. So shout out to Danny Rowe. So that was in the month of July. Now as we venture into August, August was a big month for sure. And we had Hayden Ditto was another featured guest on the podcast, and he dropped a lot of value. And this is where he started to introduce the topic of POD, which is print on demand.
How's it going? My man Brian, I just want to give a huge thank you for just allowing me and my business partner Ryan to be such a big part of your journey, and I also want to thank you for being such a big part of our journey. We flew out to Chicago. Quick little recap, let's see. Flew out to Chicago for Dropship Chicago. We had an in-person event. That was very, very cool. That was mine and Ryan's first time speaking at any type of event of any sort. Ryan and I both were featured on Tech Money Talks countless times. I had an interview, Ryan had an interview, and we both actually had a dual interview live in Chicago. It was super, super cool, and this is kind of like my first year really kind of getting in behind the scenes of dropshipping and really helping people out, and Brian was a huge help, and he really helped us expand our platform, and I can't even really count how many students we got that are listeners of Brian's podcast. And Brian is a really great guy, and I'm just really grateful to be such a big part of 2019 for you, and I can't wait to see what 2020 holds for Up-Level Entrepreneur and also for Tech Money Talks. So with that being said, huge thank you to you, Brian, for everything you did for me and Ryan this year. Can't wait to see what the next year will bring. 2020 is going to be huge. Let's keep crushing it.
And he actually started partnering up with Ryan Matthews, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that later on in this chronological year in review. But Hayden dropped a lot of value on the podcast for sure. Now, following that, this is where we had Emma Reed. Now, this is really cool. Emma Reed's based out of Australia. And like I said, man, this is a global business. We're selling to the world. And Emma just dropped a lot of value. She's been keeping it real. And she's one of the most popular podcast episodes in Tech Money Talks. And it's just really awesome. And she was one of the first to actually talk about women in e-commerce and women in drop shipping, and just really great stuff. Emma did a really great job on the podcast, and she's doing great things for herself and keeping it real. And she actually had something to share with you here, so go ahead and take a listen to Emma.
Crazy what has happened in the last couple of months. Like back in June, I first started posting publicly at all about my story and dropshipping and all of that, and I was super shy back then. Like I wouldn't get on video like this, but now look where we are. Look what monster you created. No, but seriously though, putting myself out there opened up so many opportunities, like going on the Tech Money Talks podcast with Brian. That was an amazing interview, a great experience. Got to drop some fire value on how to get started for $10, and we laughed a lot really on that episode. He's a great host. You should check it out if you haven't watched it. But being on there inspired me to keep creating content for this space, keep building up a community. I've launched a Facebook group, Ecom Explorers, if you want to go check that out. I'm excited to build that in 2020 with a couple of other dropshippers. And as well as that, Burlo invited me out to film some content with them. It's coming out on YouTube. Super pumped for that. Super excited to see where I can go in 2020, how far I can scale up my stores. One that I recently started after going on Tech Money podcast has done 180K in the last couple of months. So let's see where that goes in 2020. Follow along the journey.
All right, wasn't that awesome? I tell you, Emma's the real deal, and she's been doing a really great job for sure. Now, following that, we actually had featured guest Jonathan Smith, John X Paul. Now, John, he's another like ripped brother that's just like, bodybuilder, shared his experience, and he's one of the few that's been doing like 8 figures in dropshipping. That means tens of millions of dollars drop shipping, and he shared his story. I mean, he started from being a restaurant chef, And then at the end of this first year drop shipping, just left his job and started doing drop shipping full time, and now he's doing 8 figures, and that happened over the course of 2 years. He shared what he's been doing on the podcast, and he's one brother that's just been absolutely killing it. John X Paul, so I say keep a lookout. That brother's been keeping it real. Another thing that he dropped was related to product sourcing. He actually has a product sourcing agency. So if you're in drop shipping and you're looking to get to that point where you need to get a better supplier, he has a company based in Canada that can do that for you. So it's something to look into. So I say stay in tune with John X Paul for sure. Following that, we had Ricky Hayes as a special guest on the podcast, and he's another guy that's based out of Australia as well, and he's doing a great job. Left his IT job and then started doing drop shipping full time. Big numbers. I mean, he's doing big numbers for sure, and he actually had something to share about his experience on the podcast. So go ahead and take a listen to Ricky Hayes.
Hey there, my name's Ricky Hayes, and I've been previously featured on Tech Money Talks in a featured podcast on e-commerce dropshipping. I've done over $87,000 in a single day, and it was absolutely chaotic, but it was a lot of fun. And I spoke about this on the podcast, which was in great detail. I absolutely love speaking about it, and how to start a dropshipping business for beginners, okay? Where to start, how to start, and what you should expect when you do start. And speaking about all those things was really rewarding, especially when I got a lot of messages from people saying how thankful they were with their honesty about it, and how, my humility around the topic, but it was just really nice to help people out, okay? You know, we're all here for the same cause of just being able to have more freedom in our lives, and so that's what I love the most about Tech Money Talks. We're just speaking about how to help people in their various journeys in their life so they can achieve your own form of success. So that was super rewarding. Now for me, this year, my business growth has been really, really great. Obviously been plenty of ups and downs. There's no such thing as always ups. As you go up, you're going to have downs, and it's just how it is. But this year has been full of new opportunities and surprises. I've scaled stores to over 100,000 in a month, over 200,000 and over 500,000 in a month. Okay, and started a new brand, for instance, that I actually ran out of stock in so quickly because the product just sold so well, and as a result, people were just buying it so much, we ran out of stock. So, you know, it was that's been my recent one, and that's what you come to expect when it comes to being business, especially e-commerce. Having a physical product, you're going to have these little things, whether it's fulfillment issues or refunds or just some issue in your business, and that's what has been my focus of 2020, is really trying to establish myself and my businesses as proper brands. Okay, that's been my long-term focus, rather than focusing on sales right now, focusing on the longevity of the business and making custom products, making custom packaging, building a really strong team with great support to give the customers the experience they want, need, and deserve. And that's really rewarding for me personally, because I'm a consumer myself, and I just like to have a good experience. And so I just think, well, so would others, okay? And so that's what has been my focus, and the growth of business in 2020. Done well over about $750,000 this year, just because been focusing a lot more on long-term rather than the immediate short-term. And so that sort of leads me on to what my goal is in 2020, or what to expect in 2020. So for me personally, I have a few goals with my e-commerce. I'm going to scale those up and continue giving customers a great experience. I want to learn more about other marketing mediums. You know, I actually want to learn about TV ads, billboards, so on and so forth with the brand. We're implementing Google ads, Bing ads, YouTube ads, Snapchat ads, Facebook ads, Instagram ads. It's a lot to handle, but it's very challenging, and I love it because it's also very rewarding. So that's my goal in 2020, is to keep mastering all these marketing platforms and understanding more about the industry, understanding more about the consumer, and I love that. Additionally, in 2020, my goal is to also go to my first mastermind, and I've already been invited to a couple of these masterminds to be a speaker, and I'm super excited for that. It's been a lifelong dream for me to be on these masterminds, or a part of these masterminds, working with amazing like-minded people and providing value to them, and so that that's something that really, really excites me. And just networking with more people as well. I love doing these things like the podcast. It is so much fun. Genuinely being able to have some positive impact on people is one of the most rewarding things one could have. So I just wanted to say again, it's been an absolute pleasure being on the podcast earlier this year in Tech Money Talks. It is such an amazing podcast with so many amazing guests. You can see why they get so many amazing guests. So be sure to stay tuned for more. Have a lovely 2019. Merry Christmas to all, and have a happy 2020.
Wasn't that awesome? Did you hear that accent? I tell you, he's from Australia, and he's a great dude, and he's been doing e-commerce and been a solid guy in doing that and providing value, especially on YouTube as well. Now, our next featured guest that we had was Nazarati. Naz, I like to call her, and she is absolutely killing it. She's now based in California, and she dropped a lot of value and has been absolutely doing great things for sure. And she's just been so awesome, and she actually was a part of becoming a featured guest in Chicago. And I actually didn't get a chance to talk about this as yet, which is in Chicago along the way. And I'm sorry, I just jumped into the month of August, but I didn't get a chance to talk about. Let me take a step back, guys. Let me take a step back. Let me jump back to the month of May because this is important. Along our journey here in Tech Money Talks, but in Chicago at the end of May, in looking for where to connect, how to plug in with other like-minded individuals that are doing drop shipping and e-commerce and business-minded folks for online business, there was nothing popping off in Chicago. So I felt that way. My man Joe felt this way, who's working behind the camera right now. He's a YouTube guy, so be sure to follow Joe. And then also we partnered up with Manny, who's a professional dropshipper, doing more on eBay and Amazon platforms. But we came together and put together a group that's called Dropship Chicago. And we started at the end of May, and we've been taking off since then. And now we've grown to over 200 members. Actually, it's about 220 members of the Chicago group. And now we get together almost weekly. We do major monthly events, and we do weekly workshops. And it's just been really awesome. We've been helping people, giving value, a lot of great feedback. Like one example, in our workshop, we have a getting started workshop where people can actually get their store started, things like that. And there was one guy, he shared a testimonial. He was like, man, I learned everything. I watched so much YouTube. I went through so many courses, and I thought I was gonna just go to Starbucks and sit down and get my store started. And I did everything but get started. But then he comes to our workshop, and it's like we helped him within that 1 hour. We helped him start his store, and it's just really great. So Dropship Chicago, that's the story behind there. But leading back to Nazarati, she actually was a featured guest on Dropship Chicago. And let me share a little clip with Naz.
What's up, beautiful people? My name is Naz, and I just wanted to do a quick recap from 2019. And I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Tech Money Talks for having me on his podcast. I really enjoyed talking to him and talking about dropshipping, talking about how he started dropshipping years ago, before when I was 5, 6. It's just how long it's been around and how crazy it is and how much opportunities we still have and how much money is there to be made. And also a good experience that I had with Chicago events that he has for a mastermind that we talk about Facebook ads, or making a brand, actual brand that could last a long time.
Wasn't that awesome? I tell you, Naz is great, and she's absolutely doing great things. She dropped a lot of value in Chicago, and it was just really awesome. So I'm really happy that I got a chance to get to know Naz better. So shout out to Naz. Be sure to go check her out on YouTube. She's got an awesome YouTube channel where she's dropping things weekly. She's dropping things weekly on YouTube, and it's just really awesome. So another featured guest in the month of August is Daria Wolf. Now, Daria Wolf has been really awesome. She shared her journey into e-commerce and has just been keeping it real. I really love her personality. We hit it off. The podcast was just great, and she actually had some really great things to share with the audience. So let me switch it over to Daria.
What's up, guys? It's Daria Wolf here. Brian asked me to give a little year-end update, and it's been about 4 or 5 months since I was on the podcast for Tech Money Talks. And since then, I actually teamed up with the Watcher's Eye family. So I just got back from Puerto Rico. We had a mastermind there, and I'm very happy to report that dropshipping is not dead. We saw a lot of people that are just getting incredible results, and I'm really excited to see what we can do, with the Watcher's power behind us. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to be in LA, Miami, and New Orleans in January and early February. So if you're around, hit me up.
Wasn't that awesome? I tell you, she's keeping it real, and everything that she does has just been really great. That was a lot in the month of August. Now we move into the month of September, and the month of September was a big month as well. And let's give a shout out to Otis Coleman, the e-com wizard. And he's also based out of the United Kingdom as well. And if you caught on, Coleman, he's actually the brother of Harry Coleman, the beast of e-com. And it was funny because he said, yeah, we're real brothers. Like, we got the same mom and dad. Like, we're not just brothers where we say we're brothers. He's like, we got the same mom and dad. And he shared his journey into drop shipping and e-commerce. And it's just really awesome stuff for sure. So I'd say go check out Otis Coleman. He's doing a lot of great things on YouTube, giving product recommendations and a lot of great tips on YouTube. So go check it out. Following that, we had a featured guest, Jordan Wells. Jordan is just really awesome. So, I mean, he's been doing great in dropshipping his own e-commerce business, but he's also the co-founder of the Underground Earners event. Now, this event, I would say, was probably the major event of the year related to dropshipping. They rented a mansion in Beverly Hills and had a lot of the heavy hitters, a lot of the featured guests that I've been mentioning here on the podcast as featured guests teaching on stage in this Beverly Hills mansion. And it was so great. And I would have been there myself personally, but I was actually here in 1871 because I was meeting with one of the youngest billionaires on the planet, John Collison, who's a co-founder of Stripe. And that was really awesome. So it took me away from the Underground Earners event, but I'd say really awesome. So Jordan dropped a lot of value, and he's also the founder of Viral Vault, which has helped a lot of people get started. And I've actually proved out Viral Vault not only for getting sales, but then also leading to what I've been now sharing, which is called Dropship Funnels. So you take a viral product like you can get from Viral Vault, connect it with funnels that you can get from Dropship Funnels, and it's just making money. I'm talking about $1,000 days that I proved out within a week. And that's just really awesome. That's something I could talk about later in this year in review in the chronological order. But this is just the month of September. I'm telling you, there's so much that's happened. So now the next featured guest, we had Linda and Ricky Andrade. Now this was a twofer. We had two for the price of one episode here, but they both got their start in e-commerce, and they both got their start in drop shipping. And so they shared their journey, and a lot of people, so this is the thing to take away. It's not like you have to just start with drop shipping and then stay a drop shipper for the rest of your life. You use that as a stepping stone to take it to the next level. Some people keep going all the way, but it leads to different ventures. It leads to bigger, better things. And that's what they did in their own right, and they shared their journey, and that was just really awesome. All right, so that was awesome for sure. Go check it out. Linda and Ricky, they're doing great things for sure. And it just reminded me, they're actually one that were driving this gold-plated Lamborghini based out of Las Vegas. And that's actually what caught my eye when I saw this thing. It was like one of the few, they're like, it's the only car, and they talked about how it gets a lot of attention and things like that, but it's just great things there. The next featured guest that I had on the podcast was Ryan Melnick. Now Ryan has been keeping it real for sure, and he actually, and it's funny that I mentioned Lamborghini because he points out, you know, how you can't just blindly follow every Lambo guru that you see on YouTube, and he's one to call that out in his own YouTube channels because he's been dropping a lot of value, giving a lot of tips and strategies away for free. And it's really good. He dropped a lot of value on the podcast, so go check out the episode with Ryan Melnick. following that, we had Christiana Hurt. Now, Christiana Hurt is the one who started Wealthy College Kids. So she was in college while she started her online business, and she shares her journey, what she's done, and she is an absolute go-getter. She's already been speaking on the big stage with all the other heavy hitters, and she's just dropped a lot of value for sure, and she's doing a lot of things, thinking outside of the box. She talks about it on the podcast, so I'd say be sure to go check out the episode with Christiana Hurt. Then, following that, this is really awesome. We had a podcast interview with Sean Mike Kelly. Sean is the founder of Jersey Champs, and if you don't know what Jersey Champs is, this is where he did custom jerseys. So he was one of the first to actually do like custom, as an e-commerce business, custom made jerseys, and for different celebrities he was doing it for. So an example was like he got a Shark Tank custom jersey made, and Mark Cuban, sporting it, and that's where it went viral. And he also was doing like other custom jerseys for like 21 Savage, and when he's wearing it, all of a sudden that jersey goes viral. And he started to work this pattern where you take an influencer, like an A-type celebrity and an influencer, and you have this type of product and connection, and that made that business. Just absolutely crushing it in that space. He's a very, very smart marketer and in branding and just the work. So he dropped a lot of value on the podcast. So I'd say be sure to keep a watch out for Sean. Following that, we had an interview with Kevin Zhang. Kevin's story is just really awesome because he graduated from Vanderbilt and started to work for McKinsey, but he was already started his drop shipping business. And at the time when I interviewed him, which this is the month of September, a little over a year, this was like his anniversary in the drop shipping, 1 year, and he was already reaching over $20 million in revenue. And throughout this year, because he was having smashing success, he spoke on U of I's TEDx stage, so he's a TEDx speaker, and he's actually local here to Chicago, which I thought was really cool. And I was like, well, hey, maybe you could plug into our Chicago group. And the funny thing was, he's like, Brian, I just bought my dream home in LA, and I bought my dream car, that BMW i8 where the doors open up like this. But Kevin is just absolutely really smart about his drop shipping business, e-commerce business. And this is another example where he takes it a step further. He proves out products with drop shipping, and then he goes into acquiring the source, and he explains the whole thing in the podcast. I'd say take a listen.
How's it going, guys? It's Kevin Zhang from sunny Los Angeles. It's not too sunny right now, but I know my family back in Chicago is absolutely freezing, so I cannot complain. And this is my year-end review for 2019 for the Tech Money Talks podcast. And first off, I just want to say what a great job that Brian has done with this podcast. He is so good at being a host and extracting the stories and the insights from all of his guests. And I think when you're a digital entrepreneur, it's often really easy to forget that you're a part of a massive ecosystem of some really cool people doing some awesome things every day. I'm certainly inspired by the stories that are told on that podcast, and I love these stories of hustle, and it's surely one of my favorite ways to learn and one of my favorite podcasts to listen to. So 2019 was a really big year for me personally, and as well as my team. I don't know how many of you guys know my story, but I went from being in $3,000 of credit card debt to generating $20 million in sales in just a year, and it's completely changed my life. I literally went from living in my parents' basement to now living in this beautiful house in the Hollywood Hills, and every single time I'm outside, on my balcony, I just feel so blessed. And I'm not here trying to flex on you guys or anything like that. I just think it's a testament to everything that you can do with e-commerce, and especially the world of digital entrepreneurship. 2019 was a tale of infrastructure and growth. We built out a team of over 60 team members all across the world, all working remotely, and also developed facilities in 3 different countries to fuel our e-commerce growth. And 2020 is going to be the year of further growth, as well as the year of some new projects outside of dropshipping. I'm so focused on building infrastructure. I talk about this a lot in my podcast feature, and that basically frees up a lot of my personal time so I can focus on growth and also focus on some other projects. So my core e-commerce business, which I spend less than 2 hours a day working on, is going to do $35 million in its second year, and we just crushed Black Friday, having done $430,000 of sales in a single day. So what are the big things I'm working on outside of dropshipping? Well, the first thing is e-commerce education. I am launching a free e-commerce curriculum that is going to put these fake gurus and all these self-proclaimed experts and these scammers out of business for good, and that's something I'm very passionate in because I started out with nothing, and I hate it when people are scraping together what little they have just to get scammed. Number two, I'm about to launch my own streetwear brand in April, and it's gonna be very, very exciting. We're hoping to get some celebrity influencer involvement in on this. And lastly, what we're gonna be doing is gonna be releasing a piece of software that we use a lot internally when we are setting Facebook ads. And hopefully it's gonna help a lot of e-commerce entrepreneurs and digital marketers get better performance and get better Facebook ad strategy. So that's a wrap for 2019. I'm super excited for 2020, and I wish the best of luck to all of you on your journeys, on your hustles. And just remember, it only takes a year to change your life.
Because you'll see why he's having that level of success. Really awesome stuff for sure. Now we're still in the month of September, and I want to talk about the most awesome thing that happened, which was here in Chicago, Dropship Chicago. We had a major event. We had Ryan Matthews and Hayden Ditto fly in here live personally. They spent a few days here in Chicago plugging in with the Chicago Dropshippers, and they dropped a lot of value. And what we did throughout that, a month before, I told them, I said, I want to prove out your program, your up-level POD program, which is a print-on-demand e-commerce service. And this is something that they're really excited about. They're thinking outside the box. Like I said, they're young entrepreneurs thinking outside of the box, and they came up with a formula, a magic formula called the JST method. This is where you don't need to spend any money on advertising to get sales. And we're talking about sales that'll continue to feed itself. It's really awesome. Nobody's teaching, I'm telling you, nobody's teaching this. And they dropped a lot of value here in Chicago. I proved it out to prove that it works, and it does. And a few other members did as well. And it's just really awesome stuff. So that happened in Chicago, and I thought that was really awesome. Great things happened in September for sure. That was a lot, I'm telling you. Now, as we move into the month of October, following that, this is where we had right at the beginning of October another major event. And this is the biggest event that we had for Dropship Chicago, and it was the major event of the year, which was like a millionaire e-commerce mastermind event. It was with Sean Mike Kelly. So like I said, if you caught on, I did the podcast interview with Sean in September, and I said, hey, if you're ever in Chicago, let me know. We'll be sure to host you. We have this Dropship Chicago event. He's like, hey, I'm going to be there next week. And I said, next week? I was like, you want to do an event? He's like, yeah, let's do it. And we started pulling strings together. This is where we had amazing events. So the featured guests that we had at this millionaire e-commerce mastermind, so we had Sean Mike Kelly. We had Ramsey that was doing 9 figures. He's here based in Chicago, based out of the Willis Tower. Ramsey, we had George, we had Jordan Wells, we had Kevin Zhang, we had Joe Staiber. So you could see just the amazing group of heavy hitters. And this was also kicking off the first of Q4. So Q4, we talked about how to prepare for Black Friday, and it was just a really awesome event. We had like over 80 people there, and I thought it was just like really awesome in one setting in the room, and it was just really great stuff. So great things are happening for sure. Man, that's just the beginning of October. But regarding the podcast, we had a podcast interview. We had a featured guest with Anthony Aguiman. His tag name is Online Money, and this brother has been really cool. His story is like he's from the streets and grew up, and now he's doing things drop shipping, and he dropped a lot of value. So shout out to Anthony Aguiman. And then we had Justin Wall. Justin Wall is another heavy hitter, one of the co-founders of the Underground Earners event. And Justin is a 2 Comma Club award recipient, and if you don't know 2 Comma Club, that means $1 million producer, where Russell Brunson in ClickFunnels, verifies that he's a $1 million producer. Justin has been keeping it real, and now he's 2 times in a row, going on 3 times. That's coming up next year. We're going to be meeting at the next Funnel Hacking Live event in Nashville, which is going to be really awesome. So Justin's been crushing it, keeping it real. We're going to be there, so keep a lookout. January, end of January is like January 29th in Nashville. If you're around, I say go meet us there, but it's going to be really awesome stuff into 2020. Then following that, we had a podcast interview with Tony Mastalone. He was one that did the Digital Growth Summit in New York. So he's operated out of New York, and he also has a really great platform related to email follow-up system, which is just really awesome. So I'd say keep a look at he dropped a lot of value as far as the importance of following up with your customers and making money on the back end. He dropped a lot of technical value in that podcast episode. Go check it out. Shout out to Tony. Then following this, we had a powerful podcast interview with Bogdan Kosalov. Now, his story, like his journey into e-commerce and drop shipping, is something that went viral. Like, he was actually scammed out of $10,000 following somebody that he believed was a real person and legit, and turned out not to be the case. And he actually called that person out online, and the story just went viral within the community. So his story went viral, and he shared all about it on the podcast, and we talked about other things. He talks about how he came back and rose, and how the community came out to help. His story is just so awesome, and it increases the awareness about watching out for the fakes that are out there and avoiding the scammers. So that's been a big part of Tech Money Talks, which is, everybody that I've had as a featured guest on the podcast, I do my best to do the research to make sure that they're keeping it real, and that's why they're a featured guest on the show. But it's all about avoiding the fakes and following what's real, because if you look on YouTube, like I said before, some people, Lambo gurus, or they're taking photos in front of private jets, but you don't really know what to believe, and you don't really know if they're real or not. So I do my best to do the research. Bogdan actually increased the awareness about watching out for the scammers out there, and it's just really awesome. So following that, I also had an interview. This was a powerful interview with Joshua McCall, and he is the founder of a movement brand. So he's using e-commerce for good. He's got a movement brand where he's helping to feed the homeless. He has a brand that's called Brick. Being real is quality. And he dropped a lot of value for sure as far as how he got his start, his passion behind it, and he's actually doing e-commerce for good. So it's a really awesome thing that you could be running a business and looking for ways to do good to help other people. And it's just really awesome, man. I tell you, a really powerful episode for sure. So this has all happened in the month of October. And I tell you, another great thing that happened in the month of October, which I'm really honored to say, is that Spotify officially sponsored the podcast in October. And this is where I was just like, wow, this is making the podcast go mainstream. Because I tell you, about a year and a half ago, so back in 2018, when trying to get the podcast off the ground, just getting started, I wanted to get the podcast on the Spotify platform, and at that time they were being real selective as far as what podcasts could be on there. Really, they only selected the big ones, but basically I wasn't approved to get the podcast on the platform in the beginning. And eventually, when trying again, you don't give up on the first no. I tell you, don't give up on the first no. So I got the podcast on the platform, and then it started to take off. And then throughout this year, that's when Tech Money Talks is officially sponsored by Spotify, and also sponsored by Anchor FM, which is a company that Spotify owns. So it's taken the podcast mainstream. It's legit, and it's just really awesome. So I'm really proud of that. That happened in October. Big things are happening for sure. As we move into the month of November, this is where I interviewed Zach Paoni. He calls himself the advertising guy. And he actually talked about a lot of great value, actually how he uses Messenger in there. And I like that he touched on that topic because it's a new technique, because people are now more responsive, like 90% response rate, because they're responding to the Messenger direct messaging bubbles in there. He talked about that, other forms of advertising, really great stuff with Zach Paoni. And actually, he has something to say about his experience on the podcast. So let me toss it over to Zach and hear what he has to say.
My name's Zach Paoni, the advertising guy. I just want to give a shout out to Brian and the Tech Money Talks podcast, the #1 dropshipping podcast available on Spotify, for having me on board in the interview. Everything went great. The feedback is absolutely overwhelmingly good from the podcast. I'm so glad to be able to help everybody, with their questions. And I've been able to, right from the podcast, some people with just free advice from me. Again, I'm helping everyone for free that needs it, that listens to me on the podcast and reaches out. Help people double their revenues, and double their conversion rates within a couple days just from reaching out with some of their questions they have. Black Friday, Cyber Monday, we just killed it across all our clients' accounts. And again, shout out to Brian. I'm so grateful. This has been an amazing year. That was the highlight of my entire year so far in e-commerce, being involved with Tech Money Talks and the Tech Money Talks family. And I'm looking forward to coming on again and killing it.
Hey, wasn't that awesome? I tell you, man, Zach is actually crushing it in the advertising space, and he has his own agency, so I say go check it out. Now, the next featured guest that we had on the podcast is Sean Gunna. Now, this guy is just absolutely awesome. A big ball, fire of energy he is. We hit it off, and we were actually doing a video interview, so we were talking to each other, and man, I say we couldn't stop laughing. Our energies were just kind of bouncing off each other like this, like this, like this. And I tell you, total high energy. And I loved having the podcast with Sean. Sean actually worked with Ty Lopez and then ventured off on his own. Has some great stories to share on the podcast, but he also has something to share here in this year in review video. So go ahead and take a listen. Let me toss it over to Sean.
Yo, what's going on? This is Sean Gunna, and this is gonna be my e-com year in review. So 2019, it's been a long year. We still have one more month left, but I just want to recap 3 different things. The first thing I'm going to talk about is my experience on Tech Money Talks podcast. And shout out to Brian, you are a fucking beast. Bro, like this was like one of the funnest podcasts I've ever done. It was probably one of my favorite ones thus far, and I would definitely be on again in the future. But with that being said, you just knew your research, like you did the fact finding, like you understood exactly what you wanted to ask and cater towards your audience. And I think that the audience got a lot of value from this podcast in general. And not only that, like for me personally as the interviewee, like it was just fucking dope. Like the energy was fire. Even though we're in the same room, the energy was fire. I can feel your energy vibing through just the screen alone, And the question that you asked me, like it was you let me like speak my truth, you let me just answer thoroughly, and you let me think through and think big, and I was able to deliver as much value as I could to the audience, and I really loved that. And that was probably one of the funnest parts about the interview that I had alone, was just being able to give freely, give as much value as possible, and just like really speak my truth and allow just like the things that were like flowing through my head and being able to answer your questions come through to the audience. So that was probably one of my favorite parts about being on the podcast. And not only that, just like, being genuinely connected, and on top of that, just being authentic, like really being able to like talk about being transparent about like the ups and downs of life. And not only that, but just the journey alone. And so I think that was freaking fire. And I'll definitely be on again 100%. But with that being said, like whoever has not listened or subscribed to your podcast just yet, Tech Money Talks, gotta do it right now. Check it out. There's so much value on that podcast. He has so many high status heavy hitters that go on the podcast that he interviews alone. So if you're not on it, you're missing out. All right, so the second thing that I want to cover in this e-com year in review is what I accomplished in 2019. So for the past 11 months now. And I think the biggest thing that I accomplished, besides all of the trials and tribulations and adversity that I had to overcome in order to get to this point today, was being able to establish my personal brand online. Because I believe that you have to establish your brand in 2 ways. One is in person, and the second one is online. And it's especially online because it depends on your business, it depends on like your goals and dreams, but you have to be able to personal brand yourself in both aspects, online and in person. And if you don't do both, you don't have both, then you're not as high status as you would want to be. And if that's not even your goal, if your goal is not to become high status, then I highly encourage you to become high status and make that one of your goals at least. But with that being said, for me personally, being able to establish my personal brand online has been a big accomplishment for myself. I've been able to help other people do their like branding online, etc. But now it's time for me. It's time for me, baby, and that's all it is. So 2019, that was a big focus for me, and I was able to do that. And not only that, but I was able to impact as many people as I could. You know, just being able to reach a different demographic, a different audience that I would have never known if I did not establish myself as a personal brand. So going to the third thing now, just my goals for 2020, and this is just gonna tie in like my 2019 wrap up in a way too. But it's to establish my brand on all aspects of social media, on all platforms of social media. But not only that, just to take it up a notch, I have a high status networking course I'm going to be releasing, and it's going to be a 7-week course pretty much. And it's pretty much taking someone from low status to high status when it comes to branding and networking. And I'm going to be releasing that course soon. But with that being said, my goal for 2020, by the end of 2020, is to have 1,000 students registered in that course. And not only registered, but achieving high status, achieving the high status personal brand, the high status lifestyle, the high status brand in general that they truly want to accomplish. And so that's my biggest goal for 2020. That's my main focus for 2020. And not only that, on the side of my selfish goals, because I believe you have to have a selfish goal and you have to have an altruistic goal. But my altruistic goal is to make sure that I give my mom the option to retire. So by the end of 2020, if that option is available for her and she wants to take it, then so be it. And that's all it is. But whatever it is for you in 2020, I hope that you guys accomplish it. I hope that you guys put your best foot forward, start the year with a strong momentum, and literally take massive action. Take that leap of faith, take those risks, and make sure it's calculated, but also make it fucking happen. Do what it takes. You got what it takes. Just give it all that you've got. Let's go.
Wasn't that awesome? I tell you, man, he's absolutely crushing it. Big ball of energy, and he's a really great dude. Shun, shout out to Shun, and hopefully we can stay connected and do bigger things next year, 2020. I tell you, so the next featured guest that we had on the podcast was Mark Studer. Mark has been actually doing really great things, and he caught my attention because he was actually one of the first to utilize TikTok. So he's utilizing TikTok, and he's doing some very creative, funny videos related to e-com, dropshipping. So he's doing his own dropshipping business, but he's also personally branding himself using TikTok. He was one of the first to actually share about how his experience, how he had a mentor, but he discovered that that mentor wasn't right for him, and how he was able to identify that and then shift to a different mentor. So I'd say listen to that podcast. It was really good stuff.
This year has been the most transformative year for me in e-commerce. I've had some of my worst failures, some of my biggest losses that I now get to look back and laugh upon. And because of that, I believe because of that, I've also had some of my biggest successes. And you know, one of those successes was actually going on the Tech Money Talks podcast. I had a great time with Brian, dropped a ton of value. So if you haven't checked that out, go ahead and do that. And as far as next year goes, I am honestly super excited for the Facebook ads CBO change. As you probably know, in February, CBOs are going to be everything that Facebook does, and I'm honestly excited for that. I see that not as a downside, but you know, as an opportunity, and I believe that I'm one of the people that can really take advantage of that. So all in all, 2019 has been an amazing year for me. Lots of failures, but lots of successes, and I'm looking forward to what 2020 holds. Peace.
Mark has been keeping it real. I tell you, he's been keeping it real the whole time. Now, following that, we had Andreas Kunik. Andreas, I actually stumbled upon him because he was a featured guest on Oberlo's YouTube video. They flew them out to Berlin, him and his partner, but Andreas dropped a lot of value. Come to find out, he actually came here to Chicago. So hopefully next time when Andreas comes back, that we get Andreas to come back to Chicago. But the cool thing is that Andreas had something to share about his experience on the podcast. So let me toss it over to Andreas and hear what he has to say.
Hey Brian, Andreas König here. Thanks for the great interview on Tech Money Talks. It was a pleasure for me to be featured on Tech Money Talks. And yeah, 2019 was a great year. We hit 7 figures in 2019 with our e-commerce business. We are already a brand now with over 25 employees. And next year, 2020, we will hit our 8 figures goal. So yeah, this is a message for everybody out there who is doing e-commerce or dropshipping. Go for it, never give up, you will take it, and yeah, it's every second worth it to do it. So yeah, thank you so much and have a good day.
Wasn't that awesome? I tell you, man, Andreas is absolutely killing in his own business and he's doing really great things for sure. All the way from, so he's all the way in Europe. I want to say Austria, but I'm not remembering right now, but really great stuff. Like I said, this is a global business. We're selling to the world and he's crushing it from over there and it's just really awesome stuff for sure. Now, the next featured guest that we had on the podcast was Alex Hampton. AC Hampton, he's now based out of Texas and he's absolutely killing it. Been keeping it real for sure. And he's got multiple stores that are now reaching $1 million, $2 million that are in there. He was also known for, he was featured on the Shade Room for taking a store from $0 to $150,000 in 14 days. This guy was a former computer engineer and then left his 9-to-5 job to focus on drop shipping. Dropped a lot of value, but he also dropped his experience on the podcast and has something to share with you guys. So let's toss it over to Alex.
Hey, what's going on, bro? I appreciate you reaching back out to me. It's been an amazing 2019 and 2020. It's right around the corner. Q4 is currently happening, so we're testing out a bunch of different products and getting this store getting ready to kill it for Black Friday. So right now for 2019, from March until November, the store that I'm currently running, we're at $1.72 million, close to $2 million. The goal is $2 million, which is very easy to do, especially with Black Friday coming up. But 2020, some of the goals were just be able to start scaling more products, being able to help more people out, do more mentorships, do an advanced course for some of my students. But I'm also dropping a case study, so be on the lookout for the case study. That's going to be over my $2 million store. And I wanted to thank you for having me on your show, Take Money Talks. I wanted to appreciate all the time that you gave me and the time that we could be able to give to others. Thank you, and I'll see you soon, man.
All right, wasn't that awesome? I tell you, man, he's been keeping it real. He's one to watch out for sure, because this is just the beginning for that brother for sure, man. I tell you. Now, the next featured guest that we had on the podcast was Leo Isiano. And it's funny because I'm trying to pronounce his name right now. And this is an inside view into the podcast. So you know those intros that I do on the podcast, those are live. Those are recorded live. But with Leo, and he goes by leo.ecom, but Isiano is his last name. And I was like, I had to retake over and over again. I want to say at least 5 retakes to try to get his last name correct just in the beginning. And it was just so awesome. Like most everyone else, I get it on the first take like this. So this actual live intro that's going on. But for some reason, Leo, I got stumbled upon and had about 5 retakes. But that's just a little inside thing there. But shout out to Leo for sure, man. The next featured guest that we had, and this is all still in the month of November. The next featured guest we had was Kyrie Oliver, and really awesome, man. I tell you, he was a former college football player and now producing over $30 million in revenue. And it's just really awesome that has smashing success, and now he has his own agency and stuff like that. It's just really, really great stuff. So shout out to Kyrie. And that was all in the month of November. And now as we venture into December, which is this month right now, the first featured guest that we had was Peter Prue. Now this guy's absolutely awesome, and he actually helped validate what I've been trying to prove out as well throughout the year, which was leveraging ClickFunnels. Now he's mastered ClickFunnels for drop shipping, and he shares his experience and he talks about the funnels and the power of it and the automation, the works, and he basically validated what I've been feeling, and that's what inspired me to kick off Dropship Funnels and it's just been really taking off from there. But Peter Prue absolutely using funnels and talking about the importance of it. And I tell you, it was a memorable thing about that podcast episode is like, it's probably the least amount that I spoke on a podcast episode because he was just running. He was just absolutely running with tips and value the whole time. He's got a great YouTube channel where he's dropping a lot of value weekly. So I say go check him out on YouTube, Peter Prue. Shout out to Peter. And actually, he has something to share for you guys about the year in review. So let's hand it over to Peter and let him talk a little bit.
Yo, what's going on, guys? Peter Prue from the E-commerce Empire Builders here. Wrapping up 2019, we've hit a ton of record highs in our business, both in sales, profits, and revenue as well. Plus bringing on a bunch of team members full-time onto the team here as well. And 2020 is in full gear as we launch our latest brand, Untap Focus. It's a supplement business. We have very high hopes, very big goals for Untap, hitting 7 figures within its first 6 to 8 months, and as well as starting development of the latest products and services for the Untapped brand as well.
Wasn't that awesome? I tell you, man, he's absolutely crushed it. And do you see that 2 Comma Club award thing in the back there? He's always positioning it, and I didn't mention that. He's a 2 Comma Club award recipient. And here's the cool thing about this, is that he won it from his drop shipping business. He didn't become a $1 million producer by selling the course teaching about it. He's actually operating his drop shipping business, and he's a 2 Comma Club producer drop shipping, meaning that he's a $1 million producer drop shipping with ClickFunnels, and he got the award for that. He has the course where he's helping out others, this Empire Builders, but that wasn't what he earned the 2 Comma Club award for. So I thought that was really awesome because he's doing what he's preaching, basically, right? So shout out to Peter Prue, man. I tell you, that was really great. Now, the next featured guest that we had on the podcast was John Danes. John Danes based out of Nashville, and this brother, one of the youngest entrepreneurs, and he was in the top 100 podcast and actually interviewed top entrepreneurs like Grant Cardone. He interviewed Frank Kern. He interviewed Jared Getz, a lot of others, and it was just really awesome. So John went from having a top 100 business podcast at such a young age, and now he has his own digital marketing agency, which is just really taking off. So it's a really great thing. He shared a lot of tips and value, and we're actually going to be connecting with each other in Nashville. We're going to be putting together some events related to drop shipping in Nashville at the Funnel Hacker Live event. So stay tuned, keep a lookout for that. Hit me up, send me a message, and I'll be sure to let you know where we're going to have it. But because he's from Nashville, he's going to be teeing it up for everybody, but a lot of us are going to be getting together, and it's something to look forward to. It's probably going to be me, it's going to be John Danes, Peter Prue's going to be there, Justin Wall's going to be there, and many others. So keep a lookout for that. It's going to be really great stuff. The end of January in Nashville, January 29th through like February 1st. So something to check out. We're going to be there in Nashville for sure. But shout out to John Danes. Actually, John had something to share with you guys as well regarding the year in review. So let's toss it over to John.
Hey everybody, John Danes here. I know the lighting might be a little dark, but I'm filming this video for my good buddy Brian McCumber, who had my favorite podcast that I've ever been on to date. I've hosted 2 podcasts and currently host 2 podcasts. They're both top 100, both marketing and business podcasts. And Brian knows how to ask freaking questions, and he just knows how to deliver a great interview and extract value out of somebody. It takes a certain kind of individual to do that. So Brian, thank you for having me on, brother. I've had an awesome past year. Been incredibly fortunate. I've went from high school dropout to successful business owner, right? And it's been absolutely amazing. And I want to thank digital marketing and this whole world of online entrepreneurship to that whole experience. This next year, man, I'm looking forward to scaling. I want to scale to over 20 employees this next year and hit all of our personal revenue goals, which is over 7 figures. That's where we want to go, and hopefully into 8 next year too. So,
wasn't that awesome? I tell you, John, He's a great guy for sure, man. I appreciate it. So shout out to John. Now, the next featured guest that we had on the podcast is Chris Waller. And Chris is actually utilizing Google Ads to produce huge results, profitable sales using Google Ads. And he shares his technique, how he kind of spies on the competition that are using Facebook ads and he understands how Facebook ads is becoming a little bit overpriced, and he has a strategy for using Google ads to take advantage because now the Google ads are so underpriced, and he does that. He shares it on the podcast. It's really awesome. So keep a lookout for that. And he actually had something to share about his experience being on the podcast. So let's toss it over to Chris.
Hey, what's going on, guys? I want to give a quick shout out to Brian at Tech Money Talks. His podcast is absolutely amazing and is revolutionizing the way that people are doing drop shipping. If you're in e-commerce, you definitely need to make sure you stay tuned to all his podcasts. Recently, I just dropped a tons of value talking about how we've been able to cross over 6 figures using Google Ads inside of our e-commerce businesses. And we love for you guys to make sure you subscribe, give him 5-star ratings, and stay tuned for more content on his podcast because this guy is really revolutionizing the game. Thank you so much, Brian.
Hey, wasn't that awesome? I tell you, man, that's just really great things for sure. Now, the next featured guest, and I'm not sure, the podcast might not be released before, but I'm going to talk about it right now. It's the final featured guest of the year, and we talk about it, and we talk about him being the final guest of the year, which is really awesome. This guy's been keeping it real, and he's been absolutely crushing it. The featured guest, the last featured guest of 2019 on Tech Money Talks podcast is Noah Tucker, and Noah's been absolutely killing it. One of the really coolest dudes, and actually, even up to this point, I mean, he talks about it too. Over the past year, he's not even personally branding himself. He's just living it and doing it and crushing it. And he shares his journey because he's not about trying to showboat anymore. He's a really cool dude doing a lot of great things. And we talked a lot of great stuff on that podcast. And we talked about being the last featured guest of the year and then what to watch out for and what to learn in 2020. So I'm not sure if it's going to be released just yet, but it's going to be the final featured guest of 2019, Noah Tucker. And as I say, be sure to keep a lookout for that. But that's the year in review, folks. It's Tech Money Talks. I went through everything. You can see that I'm losing my voice right now because I've been talking, sharing everything with you. But I tell you, man, things are popping off, and we got a lot of other great featured guests that are coming in 2020, and a lot of the guests that have been here on the podcast are going to be returning guests coming in 2020 for sure. But stay tuned, stay plugged in, and we're starting to do more on YouTube. We're doing things weekly. So my man Joe, who's behind the camera, we're doing things weekly, and we're going to be popping things off there. If you're ever passing through Chicago, plug in. We got the Dropship Chicago here at 1871. We're absolutely killing it. Now, like I said, over 220 members, and we're taking off for sure. But you can also plug in to our events online. So we've been doing online as well. So if you're not local, but you want to plug into our group, I mean, we're showing people how to get started. We're showing winning products. We're talking about the latest strategies and tips, featured guests coming in, live streaming or in person. It's just really great stuff, and you can plug in as well. So I'd say plug into our Chicago group because, I mean, we're making it happen here in Chicago. Now, the other thing is that with the podcast, things are taking off, and it's just the beginning. I didn't even get a chance to talk about this. I mean, I think it was like back in September, I was offered a book publishing deal. But because I was working on so many other things, I didn't even get a chance to work on that. Keep a lookout for the book that's coming out in 2020. That's going to be coming out. So a lot of great things are happening for sure. This is 2019. It's the year in review. So many great things are happening. I'm so grateful for it. I'm so happy that you've been plugged in. Hopefully it's been delivering value. I've received a lot of feedback. Please DM and send more feedback that you have. Really appreciate it, but be sure to plug in. Subscribe to the podcast. It's on all the major platforms, Spotify being one of them because they're sponsoring the podcast, but all the major platforms, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Google Play, whatever you use, something that you can listen to on the podcast, but then also on YouTube. You want to check out YouTube, Tech Money Talks on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and enable post notifications. And then, in Chicago. So things are popping off. You're going to see bigger and better things coming out in 2020. I'm really excited about the use of dropship funnels. That's the next thing that's coming out that I actually proved out this month. Proved it out for myself, and now I'm proving it out for others with this done-for-you service. And so it's a service base that's helped people to get started, not just teaching about it, because not enough people are taking action. So I noticed that. So I did this done-for-you service, and that's actually taken off. So it's something to keep a lookout for, because I just started it with a beta group, and now in 2020, we're going to be doing some bigger and better things down the road. So it's something to look out for, dropship funnels, because here's the thing. What's the difference between somebody who has the same product and one person's getting sales and one person's not? The difference is their offer. The difference is how they're selling it. The difference is how they're marketing it. And that's what's happening in this dropshipping space. It's not just about the winning product. You can have a winning product, but one person can really get a lot of sales because they're marketing it better, they have a better offer, and so on. So it's all about how you structure it. But then the other thing is, how does somebody have a bigger average order value than the next person? It's not just about that one and done type of sale. You want to have a big customer lifetime value going, and you got to know how to build that out. And I've been giving it away and teaching this for free, dropship funnels, because I proved it out. So I'm teaching this for free because I think this is an abundant opportunity that everybody can participate in, and it's a golden opportunity to get started now because it's right at your fingertips. You now have the same capabilities that the big corporations do. You have access to wholesale prices, just like the big corporations do. You have access to technology, just like the big corporations do. And now you have access to millions of eyeballs around the world that are looking to buy your products, just like the big corporations do, and it's all at your fingertips. Now you put all of that together, and what does that mean? That means you're in business, and it's something that you want to take advantage of. And I tell you, another thing that's coming to mind right now is look at the pattern. The other thing that's happened over 2019, and I'm glad that I just remembered this, is stores are closing. Brick and mortar stores are closing. I watched before my eyes. I did videos in front of the shopping mall, our local Fox Valley shopping mall, where Toys R Us, who the heck would have thought Toys R Us, which has been the store, brick and mortar store for buying toys, especially around Christmas time, is now closed. Toys R Us closed. Sears closed. Carson Prairie Scott closed. There was another school supply store there was a chalkboard school supply store. I used to take my kids there when they were little, and we used to go buy school supplies. Closed. Shopping behavior is changing. People are buying online now. And it's not about pointing fingers, it's about evolving with the times. It's e-commerce, online business. Now the thing is that it doesn't just have to be tied to Amazon, or doesn't just have to be tied to any of the big name stores. You as an individual, as an entrepreneur, if you can focus on either a single product, a niche, even if it's a general store, but you can focus as an individual seller and reach people in their own way. And people are buying online, and if you make it easy, if you have a good offer, people are going to be buying from you. So buying behaviors are changing, and it's just the beginning. I tell you, these stores just happened and they closed. Brick and mortar stores closing in 2019, and it's just the beginning, because I've been hearing about more that's happening in 2020. So with this shift, what does that mean? Now the stores are not available for customers to buy in brick and mortar stores anymore. So they need to start buying online. buying behavior is going to be more and more online. So hopefully you're on top of your marketing efforts, launching your store, having your things ready, because this is just the beginning, folks. It's a golden opportunity, just the beginning. If you're plugged in now, you're one of the lucky few that's plugged in. I'd say you're in the top 1% of people that are in the know in this drop shipping space. If you're listening to this video right now, you're in the top 1% ahead of everybody else in this drop shipping space. Now the question is, what are you going to do about it? You got to step in, you got to take action, and I'm here to help nudge you and keep you along the way. And with this done for you service, now I'm here to actually do it for you, to actually get you started, get you sales. So a lot of things are happening here. This is a really awesome golden opportunity, abundant. I don't mind sharing what products. I mean, you plug into our Chicago group, I share the exact same products that are selling to there, because I'd say, anybody, all 200 of us could be selling the same product, but there's hundreds of millions of people around the world that you could be selling to. That's how big this is. So it's a really, really amazing time, and I'm really excited to share this with you. It's just the beginning. You want to be careful though. You want to avoid the fakes out there. You want to stick to people that are real. You want to find a mentor. You want to plug in, and you got to take action, folks. You got to take action. So this is 2019. We're going to venture into 2020. I see big things happening. Stay plugged in. Like I said, subscribe, follow, leave a review, and be sure to tag us. You can tag Tech Money Talks. You can tag Dropship Chicago. Give us a shout out in your story or a post, and I'll be sure to give you a shout out in return. All right, guys, this is the end of the year in review 2019, and I look forward to staying in touch with you and sharing many more great things in 2020. And overall, the thing to remember, you're just one product away.